Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Javier with the real Javier Novoa for another amazing interview. This time we have as our guest Mr. 2020. He's a longtime manifestation coach. He is the founder of FreeNeville.com and the administrator of that site. I believe that's probably the first website that was dedicated to Neville Goddard on the web.
I believe it was probably the second big one. The first one I
Okay.
know of, well, there were actually two where they just shared a bunch of lectures, which is what I did. And can I tell you the
Good.
most classic mistake I made?
Oh, please do.
And this changed my entire life because I was imagining making a difference, helping people discover this and explore their consciousness and so on. And I put up 221 lectures of Neville Goddard for free at freeneville.com. The only thing I did so my server wouldn't get overwhelmed was I put, give me your email, I'll send you the goodies. And if you have any questions, let me know. Well, people started asking me questions. And then I started writing stock answers to send to them. And then they became articles. And then some people said, I need help. Well, then I started making products, doing some one-on-one coaching, some group stuff. And here we are 20 years later.
And it just basically took off on its own.
I didn't want it to. I just wanted to tell people how to unzip a zip file. And and because I figured not everyone understands zip files. I get it, right? I'm a technological moron, but it's like, all right, here we go. And it moved me around the world. So how cool is that?
It's just amazing how those serendipities happen. We don't necessarily know where we're going, but we just
Yes.
follow the next step there.
It's so cool because I was imagining my business going to the next level years ago. And a couple of things happened. I changed my name. I made a goofy offer, and it's this goofy offer I made had me meet my wife and move around the world. It's just crazy because it's like I didn't intend on meeting a gorgeous, lovely lady from Australia and then selling everything and moving here. I didn't intend for FreeNeville.com to become the hub of how I play with old school NLP. But wouldn't you know, gosh golly, that's what happened.
And this sort of goes into the crux of your style of teaching this stuff. I've been watching your podcast, your videos for years. I love your manner of teaching it because you cut through a lot of the BS. And I think your
Yes.
central tenet is this, don't focus so much on something out there, focus on today, focus on what's in front of you. Is that a fair characterization?
That's fabulous. I've got two cornerstones. One,
Mm-hmm.
make it about your day. And two, let it be about you. And the key is they're the same thing. Because what do you want? You want your day to be different. And for your day to be different, you have to be different. And so many people, they imagine, wow, someday I'll hit the lottery and that'll fix all my problems and that'll fix everything. And then I'll meet my soulmate. And it's like, no, I just get to be a better guy. I get to imagine up something different about me that changes my day, which changes my whole life.
And that's a beautiful way to be there. So I know a little bit about your background. Like, I just want to know how you got into Neville. When you were, I think you were raised in a good, I think you were raised in a good Catholic family like I was. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct? And then,
Yeah.
and that's a
Go
whole
ahead.
story in itself, right?
We run a program called Dream Driven Day, and the third call, we do 4 group calls. The third one is devoted to what's called the one greater than John. And I was named after John the Baptist. I was supposed to be born on his feast day. I was born 3 months early on April 1st. I went to St. John the Baptist grade school, St. John the Baptist church, and I learned all my life how to do violence to my desires. Right? Because I'm a teenage boy and I desire to be with a girl, but that's a sin. I'm a young man and I just want not necessarily riches, but richness and wealth. And that's a sin. And it's like, oh my goodness. And the irony behind it all is I get to outgrow who I was as I was born. I get to, I am so thankful I was raised Catholic, and that in ninth grade, we read the Bible. And when I read it, I didn't read it like everyone else was. I was going, my God, this really is, it's all about me. It's a handbook. And I didn't get it at the level Neville taught it at then. But so your question was, how did I find Neville, right?
Sure.
So I found two self-help books in my mom's house. I think one was by Wayne Dyer, and the other one might have been Think and Grow Rich or something like that. And I went nuts. It's like, man, there are books that can change your life. And in the front cover of one of the books was a little stamp that said the corner bookstore, books 10 cents a piece. And I went, wow, it's only a mile away from where I live if I walk through the cornfields. So I walked through the cornfields, past the old reservoir, down the road,
And what
into this
state
thing.
was this?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay. So you walked through the cornfield.
So I did all this walking, and I'm buying books every weekend. They were now 25 cents a piece, but that's much cheaper than $5 a piece. And I was a poor kid. And one of the books I picked up was Neville Goddard. I forget which one. But I was reading it on the way home because I thought, oh my God, I got to buy this book and these other half a dozen books because someone else will take them. I'm the only person in the store, right? It's a barn basically full of books. And I'm going home and I'm reading, and it's too much Bible for me. So I pitch it. I got some good shit. I ripped a few pages out, but then I gave it a pitch. So I was about 12. I was 24 and had PTSD. My wife at the time joined Amway. And my upline said, hey, here's a couple books for you to read. One of them was a Neville Goddard book. And I went, all right, I sort of remember this guy. Read through, got a few goodies, gave back, no big deal. But it was a few years later, I was experiencing what Neville calls the promise. And it was like, hold on, this guy wrote about something like this, and he didn't make it a big deal like it makes you special. He made it a big deal because it reveals who you really are, who everyone really is. And that's when I got back into Neville and went nuts. Because it's like, here's a guy that has discovered the keys to the universe, the truth about you that sets you free. And you can be a spiritual being and not forsake your humanity. Because we came here to be human and to discover our divinity. And when that dance happens, your whole life changes.
So what is the promise and enlightenment? Because I've had some experiences too. I've interviewed a lot of people who have them, and a lot of them say that it comes suddenly and you don't know what it is while you're having it. You only know about it after. And there's a passage in I don't know if you read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
I love that
amazing book. Well, you know, his enlightenment experience, basically he ended up like just a vegetable, basically like urinating on the walls or something like that. Is that how it is?
My personal experience, I was married at the time and we were sleeping in separate bedrooms. And so I'm sleeping back in the back bedroom and still suffering from some of the effects of PTSD. And it's like, man, no matter what I try, my life ain't working out. I'm a good guy, and I just decided to dedicate my life to truth. That's all I would pray about. That's all I would meditate about. I'd do my Tai Chi practice, and I'd ponder truth. And one day, the experience of, and I'll just gesture here, zip and boom happens. And I'm shaking, and I swear to God, I swear to God, I'm having a stroke. And it's like, oh my God, I'm like 20 years old. I'm not 20. I'm in my 20s, late 20s, and I'm having a stroke. I am so screwed. Oh, I can't believe it. But I thought, ride with it. Just ride it. You can't get any worse than it already is. And there was that, and the other events of the promise happened. The weirdest thing that happened, I'm an avid reader. I've got thousands of books on my Kindle. Sure. One of my clients introduced me to an app called Readwise, which randomly serves me quotes out of my highlights from these thousands of books. So I am an avid reader. And one day, excuse me, I couldn't read. I'd just look and I saw shapes. And I thought, oh
Wow.
my God. So it's like everything was reformatting up here, right? And it's like, and this is just my experience. I'm not saying everyone has to have this. And then I went blind. It's like click, and then like I saw nothing, and it's like, oh, this really blows, right? I get it. I've committed myself to truth. There's this evidence of the senses, all this stuff.
This was concurrent with that
Yes.
experience of the promise, like the day of, or like a little while after.
Uh, that all unfolded over the course of about a year and a half.
Oh wow.
So
So you
while
went
all
blind.
this is, I went blind. Now, fortunately, I was only blind for about 4 minutes. I mean, that was cool. It's like, all right, cool. But it took me a while to learn how to read again. I experienced all sorts of weird electric things. Like I couldn't hold a floppy disk. I'm 58, so you can tell we had floppy disks back
I
then,
remember
right?
those too.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I bet you remember the floppies, right? And so if somebody would hand me a floppy disk and I'd hand it back, it would be blank. And it was just crazy. I'd walk down the street lights would turn on during the day, they'd turn off at night. It was just crazy. But it was my entire reality was reshifting, reformatting, and I was discovering I'm not this physical body. I'm the spark behind the eyes. And apparently I needed all this stuff to even like not even being able to read. So stop seeking wisdom out there and start exploring the inner. And gradually reading came back. And like I said, eyesight came back within a few minutes. The electrical shit died down, which was great because like I had a buddy who tried to take me in his car. He had a newer car all full of electronics. He couldn't start it if I was sitting in it. So I had to stand outside his car. He could start it, then I'd get inside. Goofy, crazy stuff. But it's like I was just getting what I needed to get so that I could share, hey, you're not your physical body. You're what's behind it all. You're the animating experience that animates experience.
And you got a knowing of that.
Totally.
So
Absolutely. And
great
it's
knowing.
irrefutable when you have the knowing. If I just was able to read it, I'd be a parrot.
Exactly.
But the knowing it, now when I read about people that have experienced that, or I talk to somebody who does, I go, you've experienced this kind of stuff. Wow. Now you're a weirdo too, in the most lovely way.
You know it. Now, I have heard you talk to others about your experience in the police as a hostage, and I don't necessarily want to revisit that. But do you think that these extreme experiences sort of push one to this kind of enlightenment experience because you sort of have no choice after that? Do you think it was the PSD that sort of said, okay, just let's have him let go of everything?
If I hadn't experienced those things, uh, I don't know what would have got my attention to dive deep into this path. Morally, I was a good kid. And the crossing guard always said, "Oh, you're such a good boy. You're always courteous. You're always kind to other kids." Well, they all beat me up. Of course, I was kind. Yeah, I got whooped on until I got into martial arts. But even then, I was courteous and kind, thrifty, brave, obedient. I was a Boy Scout. But there's this to really have a thirst for truth. That's what I needed. Yeah, I needed stuff to fall apart so I could take me apart and discover what can't be taken apart.
That is incredible. And so, after once you discovered Neville, sort of after this experience, you were able to come to him from that angle of the promise, and then
Yes.
discover everything else that he unfolded.
Yeah, it was interesting because I'd always been interested. I was always interested in mindset, and human potential, and all that stuff because I was a
Sure.
sickly kid and just wanted something different. But when I came back to Neville that third time, it was because of the promise. And then it was like, hey, do you want the rest of your life to work out? Uh, there's this other side called the law, why most people get into it. Why don't you really dive into that? And that was my feeling. It's like, okay, I'll do that too. And here we are.
And so you spent years studying Neville. Now, concurrently, did you study any other manifestation people?
I've read just about everything that was out. I don't study anything else now. I really, uh, I read Neville, but I don't really study Neville. I'm attracted to read different things or listen to different things, and I do when I do. But yeah, I got into The Secret for a little bit, and then I just noticed the opening bits of The Secret start with, "Hey, you know what? There's a truth that the bad people hid from you. And now, in this special time in history, the truth is being revealed to the masses again." And it's like, hold on, The Secret's starting out with a victimhood. And,
That's true.
and I think I bought 20, 30 copies of it and gave it away before I actually really noticed, oh my God, I'm still a victim because I'm falling for that. So I had to drop that. And yeah, there was some other stuff I looked at, but most
And
of it, I
did you
honest to God,
delve into any
yeah.
Abraham Hicks?
People have given me they've given me the books over the years, and I've looked at them, but it's like, I tell you what I love about Neville. Uh, can I ask what your middle name is?
Gerardo.
Wow, I can't say that the way you do.
Gerardo.
It's glorious. You're a real guy. You've got a real name, and you and I could share a meal together. Neville, a real guy, a real name. He operated an elevator. I can relate to that. I have a problem relating to what
Esther says.
I can't. Yeah, I can't really relate to that out there stuff. I'm a face-to-face kind of guy.
And that's what I like about you. You sort of, like we said, you cut out the BS. You're a face-to-face kind of guy. That's good. And so that's why I wanted to delve in a little bit further. So, like we said, you talk about like having the dream-driven day and having someone, and this is what you teach in your courses and your materials, is basically, I think having someone, as opposed to focusing on a huge picture outcome, manifest, what's in front of them. But is there a place for these big intentions? Because other manifestation people that I've talked to talk about the fact that you have your intention and then you live in that while you go about your daily practices. Is this something that you resonate with?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had a lot of people score some really substantial wins. And what I notice happens, it's sort of like, if you got a beard, and I know you won't take this the wrong way. If you shave, shower, and shit, yeah, right. If you've got some good hygiene and a sense of humor and a job or something like that going on, if you're productive in the world in some way, I've noticed people find it's more conducive to everything, and it's sort of like some people are trying to get the big soulmate win or whatever, and it's like, hey, why don't you build a life while you're letting that all come together? Because no matter what, we're all going to have big wins and little wins and medium-sized wins. We all have fears, we all have doubts, but all of that is smaller than you. You're the ocean, and all that stuff is waves. And one of our guys who hit the lottery, he just knew it. He just knew it, and he did it as a game.
Exactly.
And he didn't do it to solve all his problems, because he knew the cause of his problems was him. So the big change that he did was the big change of him. And then along the way, hey, I hit the lottery. He taught his neighbor. His neighbor hit it for 35 grand. It's like, all right, that's called fun. We came here to have fun instead of waiting to have fun.
It's all
yeah.
So what do you do when you meet someone who doesn't necessarily shower or who's someone who is really down on their luck? Let's say someone just lost their job or lost their house. They can't even see, when you tell them, well, have a dream-driven day, they can't even get through their day. Maybe they don't even have food. How would you reach that person, or can we even reach that person?
Yeah, we've got homeless people here, and I chat with them. I'll just sit down, have a chat, and I never talk way out there. I just talk about whatever we talk about, and what'll show up will be something like, Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you ever notice what you focus on or where you focus from or the stories that you keep saying and feeling? They matter, don't they? And just the little bits of like letting them know, you know what, I've been down on my luck as well. Yeah, I'll talk in their language and just share, you know, at any time your life can turn around. And all you got to do is just notice, yeah, and I'll just tell them, you know, I'm a weirdo. I've got weird beliefs and dreams, right? And I one of my beliefs is that uh, when a dream shows up inside of me, that's a gift, and my job is to receive that gift. And the conversation may end there. I don't care, but maybe it'll continue the next time I see him. But just taking a few moments to plant a seed of inviting them to entertain a possibility invites them to notice the magic that they are.
And then
And it
maybe
just
that'll
grows from there. Yeah, it just
light
grows
up.
from there. Yeah.
Precisely. So shifting gears here into, I guess, to like the nuts and bolts of this. What is a state? How would
This
you
is
explain
a
that to someone who doesn't
this is
know?
so this is a great experience. Great experience. I'm already going into it. A state is how you experience what you experience. A scene is how you experience what you experience. And when that kind of sharing it that way started showing up in me, I really got, oh my God, uh, it's not about me manifesting anything. It's my inner experience determines all my experience. So when I sit down with you, I sit down as a fellow human being. That's a state. Happy, loving teacher. That's a state. And so how I experience you, how I experience our conversation determines what I experience. And when I gave a peek at you, I went, oh my God, I've got a live one here. I've got somebody who's hungry and wants to serve. And so I knew you and I could have a conversation that would bless more people than we could possibly rationally figure out. In other words, I got that you and I will dance, which we are, and we would experience
I
magic.
thought so too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a state is how you experience what you experience on a practical level. When the electric bill shows up, and I mention this all the time in the podcast, I don't try to imagine the electric bill at half of what it is. I use the electricity, I'll pay for it. They raised the price, everybody's raising prices. They've been doing it for 58 years. Before that, I wasn't here, so I don't know. So I just imagine the electric bill is not a big deal. So it went up $200. I'd rather have the $200 for scotch and cigars or puppy treats or flowers for Victoria. I'll admit it. But it's like, what if the $200 more was not a big deal? And that puts me in a state of going, how else can I serve? What else can I do to make a difference in the world? How else can I be contributed to so that I can contribute?
And that's the state of businessman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and happy, loving teacher, and just a general state of prosperity. Because prospering is a verb. Getting that, you know what you're doing? You're creating wealth in people's lives. And to do that, you had to stretch beyond who you were. And to stretch beyond who you were, had you drop me a note and say, hey, 20, what do you reckon?
That's true.
I went, dude, yeah, oh man.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So this ties a lot into what I talk about a lot on my channel, because I noticed that people in the manifesting community, there's an issue with action, whether it be with whatever teacher, because some people will say, like, some people think that you can just imagine something and sit on your couch and have it come to you, which is true. But like
Yes.
you talk about, some people are doing this just because of they don't want to go outside because of fear. So
yeah.
What is the element that action plays in this? The way I sort of describe is that thought and action You know, the Austrian economists describe the fact that thought and action are the same thing. You know, thought is an action is an offshoot of thought. So there's really no difference. Not taking action is taking action. But people don't understand it. How do you explain it to them? Because it's
This
true
is
that you can manifest with your thoughts and getting into state, but it's also true that if you stop yourself from taking action, you won't get it.
so I imagine being a guest on more podcasts. I told Victoria one day, and I love doing my podcast. Yeah, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Neville Goddard podcast. It is 6:37 a.m.
I love
I do it every day.
hot tub too, or whatnot.
They're all in the hot tub, right?
That's
And
right.
I just love it. I found myself having a hunger to have chats with people and reaching their people, because I'm reaching my people and new people find me every day. But I want to reach more people. I want them to get this. So I have this imaginal experience, and I go, all right. Well, I have the iPad, I have the headsets, all that stuff, and then you reach out to me. So my inspired action, quote unquote. By the way, let me back up. Scratch the inspired action stuff, right? Everything that you do, all that you do, and all that befalls you comes from your state, Neville says. So here you are reaching out to me because of something I imagined, but I didn't make you do it. And also, you reached out to me because of something you imagined. So at the center of it all, there's one I am imagining it. And if we want to go really street practical, everything you imagine invites you to be still when you're supposed to be still, and to move when you're supposed to move. So Neville Goddard says we have no free will beyond selecting our state. And when that hit me, this was another one of those epiphany moments. It's like, I don't have to make thousands of decisions a day. I get to choose, am I living in this state of happy, loving teacher? The state of happy, loving teacher decides whether or not I say yes or no, whether or not I do a podcast, what the subject is, what I'm going to say to you right now. I don't pick my words. The words just flow. And that to me is the big key, because we engage this experience of flow when we get out of our own way. So when I imagine, here's a good story, very practical and tactical.
Oh, yeah.
I had a Volkswagen. It sucked, right? It sucked a lot of money out of my wallet. When I was done with it, the last time I had it towed home, I parked it across. I had him park it across the stream, and I shut the curtains behind me. And I didn't look in that direction for 2 months. And my wife said, you know, your car's over there across the stream on somebody else's property. And it's like, I don't care. I'm done with it. And eventually I sold it for scrap metal, and they took it away. And I went like a couple months without a car, because I really don't need one. I work from home. Victoria was working at the time, but I could grab the car 1 or 2 days a week to go shopping. I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. So, and then one day, the hankering to get a car hits me. And my rational goes, what kind of car? Yada, yada, yada. I can't figure it out. And eventually, I just had enough. And I decided, this is the kind of car I want. I love BMW 3 Series cars. I love getting top shelf meats at bottom shelf prices. I've flown around the world for half of what it should, that kind of thing. I do this all the time. It's just good fun. And I thought, all right, I'm getting a BMW. I'm out in the driveway. There's no car in the driveway, and I've decided there's a car in the driveway. I walk in the house, and I feel the urge to go on carsales.com.au. I've been on there 100 times. I get on there 15 minutes earlier. A black BMW 325 was listed. I called him up. And the guy says, yeah, come over and look at it. I'm like, all right. So I grab some cash. We go over to look at the car. And I don't like the tires. And I don't like there's a little nick in the windshield. And I tell him, look, I don't like the nick in the windshield. I don't like the tires, but I'll take the car. But you got to do your part. It's like the car passed inspection. Those are the tires you get. I'll take care of the windshield because that's a safety issue. And my attitude went, right. I sat down. We're doing the paperwork, and he goes, "When do you want the car?" And I said, "Listen, this guy's name was Tom Sawyer of all things, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
you probably so Tom Sawyer says, "When do you want the car?" And I said, "Tom, I've got cash. You've got car. I'd like it today." And he goes, "Unfortunately, you can't have it today." I said, "Why is that, Tom?" He goes, "Somebody made a mistake." I said, "Tell me more." He goes, "Well, apparently the car was not inspected. And so we have to run it through the final inspection and make sure everything's perfect." Well, they ended up replacing all the tires. I think they replaced some brake bits or something like that. They fixed the windscreen. But I got me a perfect car for way less than it should have been. And he told me in the end, that car should have been a lot more money. And somebody mistakenly listed it. Yeah. About the time
Wow.
I'm outside having my imaginal act, they're listing my car. Victoria was beside herself. We're driving it just around the car lot parking lot, right? I didn't take it on the road. I just drove it around for 3 minutes and said, "Fine, I'll take it." She's like, "Don't you want to take it on the highway? Don't you want to take it to a mechanic?" No, that's my car. And I think I've had it 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. And I'm looking to replace it now. So I'm curious what my next adventure is going to be.
This is sort of like Neville going first class, right? And they said, "I'm
Totally.
sorry, we don't have the."
Totally.
You just keep on persisting, right?
I can just keep playing.
Exactly. Persisting.
Yeah.
So there was one thing I wanted to ask you, and it came to mind. It's something I heard from you years ago, and this might be like the secret sauce from one of your classes or something. But you said that we can go into our brain and say something like, "I want to feel dopamine" or something like that, or "I want." Did you say something like this, or "I want to feel the what chemical, some happy chemical," and you can do it at will?
I tell you what, you're unleashing something really top secret here.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Are you ready for it? Let's do it.
I'm ready for it.
So that whole big dream driven day program centers around one of the things it centers around are the 4 happy chemical states, right?
Right.
And we're looking right now at unleashing a standalone product on that, because I feel this is so important, because the only thing anyone ever wants is some sort of experience of those 4 happy chemicals. One of them is
Exactly.
serotonin, in other words,
That's right.
status in the world. Another one is
Mhm.
oxytocin, belonging, feeling accepted, loved, that you feel safe.
Sure.
Dopamine, anticipating something cool, and endorphin, feeling alive. And
That's
when
right.
you get those, aren't just chemicals, those are states, and you can mix them any way you want. And what's cool is when you can mix them any way you want, you automatically start giving them to everyone. I can't help but give you status because of who you are and what you do. And that gives me status. I can't help but experience fellowship with you because you're a fellow seeker and a fellow server. I can't help but experience dopamine, wondering, what are we going to talk about next? And then endorphin, this actual belly laugh thing. Endorphin is the feeling of being alive. It's so much more than telling a joke. It's experience those deep experiences like we've already been sharing. When you can dial those up and be your own bartender, your whole life changes. And that's behind every wish, every experience that you want in life. It all comes down to how the lottery win, or the puppy dog, or the soulmate, or getting physically fit. How does that fit in? It all comes down to status, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphin. Feeling more of those instead of settling for blah. How cool is that? Stay tuned, because we're gonna do some really cool stuff, putting together a little micro pack on that. So
I tapped into
fun.
that. So
You tapped into it. You asked the question, so I got to talk about it. How cool.
That's great. We look forward to that. So this sort of also ties into, in your view of the way things work, the mechanics of this, if you will.
Sure.
But it's all a play. It's a game. is there an emotional guidance system? Because I heard you speak about something. I think you were speaking to someone about money, and you told the person, think about what problems would I have when I have the money. So
Yeah.
when you're in a state, the whole emotional scale is involved in that, right? There could be negative emotion or positive emotion. So is it true that when you're in negative emotion, you're sort of repelling your desires, the Abraham Hicks people would say? Or is that all just in the mix once you get into the state? Then it really doesn't matter how you feel around that.
I've noticed trying to avoid any emotion has you avoid all of them. And that makes us
Even the
more
negative
like
one.
computers, even the negative ones, right?
Exactly.
In any typical day. Now, here's the miracle. We are 33 minutes in, and Emmett has not barked yet.
Oh, wow.
All right, so Emmett's laying on my feet. He may or may not bark. And if he
Right.
does, I may or may not experience an upset real quick. And then
Right.
I will also experience joy. If we resist any emotion, it lingers, it festers, it infects. On the other hand, if we just notice, and this is very practical, a lot of people won't double their income and work half the time because they're afraid of what their friends and family will think. And they won't admit it. I came from a background where they made fun of people who had money. They had, they talked about easy money, and that guy's pretty much a worthless douchebag because he has money and he never worked for it. And if you've got that lingering in there, wow. On the other hand, if I'm willing to go right, if I double my income and work half the time, what are the problems I'm going to have? Can I be okay with those? Owning a car has problems. You got to get it serviced once in a while. Without a car, I don't got to get it serviced every 3 months. With a car, I drop it off at David Brown's every 3 months, every 6 months, and get him to give it a service. That cost a few bucks. But am I okay with spending that money on a car that I drive 12 minutes a day? Oh, the
So have,
problems that we get to entertain and not have knock us out of state.
exactly. So, and that's why, I interviewed Trevor Blake, who's a billionaire, and he's into this sort of aspect. And he said that to figure out what you want, it takes a while. It takes about a week or 2 weeks to actually sit down and say, what is it that I want? But what you're also saying is that if we can get these four chemicals right, just combining those and having those will be enough.
I tell you what I notice out
Mm-hmm.
of the blue. Neville Goddard says that your desires are divine in origin. So I woke up with a crazy desire when I was a Pennsylvanian. I'm going to make $100 offer to make a custom NLP product for someone. So I put it up on the internet for $100. You and I email back and forth 3 times, and I'll make you a cool little recording. I'll keep it anonymized so I can resell it. But here's what I was doing. I was doing market research. I figured if you'd give me $100 for me to make you something, that's market research and profit. I'm not into wasting time doing market research. So I thought, this is clever. But what happened by doing that, a fella in Australia named Mikey bought one. His friend Leanne bought one. Her sister-in-law bought one. And they all belong to this Forex group that flew me over to train with them. I said, come on over and train with us for 2 weeks. We want to learn from you, right? I walked into the room and there she was. Out of the blue, I met her and a desire showed up. Out of the blue, you had, hey, let's get Mr. 2020 on the show. Out of the blue, I had a desire to be the guest on podcasts. When we allow our desires to simply show up instead of trying to figure out what they are, those pure desires do contain all the happy chemicals. And those pure desires are very easy to assume. If we try to rationalize out what our desires are, yeah, I want a red Corvette and a 20-year-old girlfriend. Yeah, and I don't want either. But rationally, that's what we tend to do. We tend to go for either cultural stereotypes or we mathematically and logically figure out all this stuff versus like, what do I want to do? I just want to make great money while doing what I love. I want to share aha moments with people. I want to be able to go to the pool and the gym and exercise. I want to spend time with my wife. These very simple desires culminate in these big things that just blow people's minds.
It's almost like I don't know how familiar you are with the Stoic writers like Seneca, and he was a very wealthy man, but he said, "Don't seek wealth, but if you have wealth, that's a beautiful thing and appreciate it, but don't seek it." I think this could have something to do touching on that idea. Whereas, like, don't seek some kind of desire out there, but just be content and you'll have that.
I find giving life to richness of experience creates wealth. So you're like me. You're a little older than some and younger than others. Do you know
38.
38? So do you know Bob Seger?
The name rings a bell, but not really. Can you remind me what that is?
Uh, yeah, he sings a lot of good songs. Just pick any good performance artist that you love.
Okay.
What are they doing? They're adding to the richness of the experience. Doesn't matter if it's Eddie Murphy, Bob Seger, one of the youngins I don't know, Freddie Mercury. Everybody knows Freddie Mercury. Please tell me no Freddie Mercury.
Of course.
Yes. Score, right? What did Freddie do? Freddie had extra teeth. Yeah, Freddie had everything working against him. He was a shy kid, a minority. He had everything working against him. And he chose instead to enrich other people's experiences. And look what he did. Wow. He may have died young, but he lived life. And we all get to explore, how do I give life to richness of experience? And then riches can easily follow that, as long as you don't believe it. Yeah, that's the one thing that I really adore. It actually terrifies me, is the whole starving artist state. It's like, I want to do what I love, but no one will pay me money. Are you kidding me? Freddie Mercury loved to sing.
Right.
Right. But there's so many artists that have done well. There's so many poets, philosophers that have done well financially because they've accepted wealth and accepted richness. We can do both.
And we just have to open ourselves up to it. But
yeah.
Now, go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, I was saying that this sort of ties into, I'm not sure if in your programs, do you encourage people to sort of address their blocks or try to work around their blocks? Or do you encourage people to just go for the vision and sort of let that take care of itself? Like, I talk about this, like, sort of, you can work on your blocks if they're big enough and if they're really hindering you, but otherwise you just sort of basically observe it and then go on to what you desire.
I love this. So I've got a buddy who I think is an 8th degree black belt now in Shotokan.
Wow.
And he tells people that I'm the most amazing fighter he's ever fought. And I can tell you why. I came to this epiphany after training really hard for a long time with interesting people. The whole purpose of when I'm doing a martial art, my whole purpose is to hit the other guy. That's all. And when that happened, the need to deal with blocking and avoiding stopped. I just get in the ring and hit people. We just had a blast. I never hurt anyone. Well, probably, yeah, not much. Yeah, there accidents happen when you do martial arts. But we just had a lot of fun. And I just had fun smashing people. And they loved it because I was smashing them when I theoretically shouldn't. And manifesting is exactly the same. Life is exactly the same. If we focus on dealing with blocks and avoiding pain and all that stuff, that's just taking your attention off of where it could go. When I focus on service, when I focus on creating, I've got a little mantra, and it's not really a mantra. It's I create wealth. I create wealth for me, for you, for everyone. And again, it's not the words, it's the feeling. And whenever I live from I create wealth, that's the same as bang, you're doing that. Whatever I do enriches people's lives because it's a state that I move from. And so when we give up on dealing with blockages and subconscious stuffs and shadows and all this stuff that's great to struggle with, and just get into,
There's no
what
bottom, is
am I?
there?
Yeah, yeah. It keeps going forever, right? Uh, versus like, how can I be loving today? How can I bring richness forth? And I don't try to figure it out. I just notice I start doing it. And we didn't came here to work on our stuff. We came here to bless each other. You and I aren't working on stuff. We're blessing each other.
Exactly. Bless each
and
other and
and,
have a great conversation.
and having a great conversation, and that will ripple out and touch people that we don't even know.
And that's the beautiful aspect of this.
Yep, you got it.
There you go. So, really quick, what is identity-based manifesting? I heard you talk about this late. If you want to
Wow.
explain to us a little bit.
Identity-based manifesting is my total obsession with this stuff. If I can put it into a bumper sticker, which will make it worthless, it's all about changing you. If we dive deeper, it really becomes. It seems to me that we're developing and have developed a method of exploring and expanding who we are. So instead of settling for any definition, any label, any event that you've been in orbit around, we've developed a really nice little protocol that helps people to move into, who do I choose to be, moment by moment? Who do I choose to be while here on Earth? Who do I choose to be? And it's cool. Instead of what do I want to make me happy, it shifts it into what can I express? How can I give? And everything that happens, your entire circumstance changes. This has got to be the worst description of identity-based manifesting ever. How cool is that? But it really, but it, but it,
great.
but
Off the
you know,
cuff.
it's off the cuff. It doesn't sell the product or the program, but it invites people, and it's probably the best description as well, because it invites people to notice, you know what it really comes down to? Who am I being in the world? Who am I in this moment? Because when you change who you're being, what you do changes, what you have changes, where you go changes. All these things that people want to change automatically change when you change.
That's what happens. And that is the sense, I guess, in which everyone as you pushed out sort of makes sense. I know that you're not a huge fan of that term, but in this sense,
I'm not a fan of the way most people use it. It's like they use it. They use it. You use it as a way to whip themselves and other people, and it's like, all right, yeah. What if instead of going, how is he me pushed out? What if we just started? What if we started with, how can we dance? How can we expose the love that we are?
And approach it more like a game.
Oh, exactly. It's not a
and
war.
That's why I try to describe it, that it's really not about behavior, because a lot of people, even in this work, they beat themselves up, right? Because they say, oh, I'm not manifesting right. I get so many questions, am I doing it right? And it's really, there's no right or wrong. You just do it. It's sort of like the Zen adage.
I got a great way to answer what is identity-based manifesting.
There you go.
So December 25th, my wife was with her family, and I was home because I just wasn't having a good day.
Oh.
And I decided I'm going to sit out at the cottage and just smoke a cigar and just relax. And suddenly it hit me. I was remembering when I was an athlete. I was remembering when I was fit and loved my body. My identity in that moment was not that. My identity in that moment was not that of an athlete. Was not.
This is the next
thing
I was going to ask you, by the way. So
sweet, isn't it? Right? So,
Yeah.
so in that moment,
Mhm.
I had an epiphany, and I started remembering when I was fat. I started remembering when I was down on my body because I had a rough year. Uh, yeah, I had an old hip injury that when we went into lockdown got worse, and I spent a lot of time rehabilitating it, but not living at the potential that I wanted to live at. And what happened on December 25th, when my identity changed, I moved into a state that I call fighting fit fleshitarian. It's a funny name, isn't it? But fighting fit fleshitarian has lost 45 pounds of fat, probably gained about 15 pounds of muscle. I feel phenomenal. Uh, can't remember the last time I've needed a painkiller. And I know some critics will say, well, if he actually knew this stuff, he would have never needed painkillers. All right, you can have that argument if you want to.
Sure.
But I can say, but I can honestly say that my identity changed from being one who was getting by and doing well to someone who's having a phenomenal time in his body. I get compliments every single day from friends, from strangers, uh, people that have just watched me over the past couple of years going, my God, you've transformed. I wouldn't even recognize you if I didn't see you every week or every day or whatever. And it's that kind of change. When I changed who I was, uh, my diet changed, the way I exercise changed. I went from swimming 25 meters to swimming a kilometer. Uh, but here's the cool thing: none of it was work. Not my diet
You're not
naturally
trying to be on
changed.
a diet.
I'm not trying to be on a diet. I just noticed what I've always enjoyed eating. I'm eating a lot more of, and what made me feel like shit, I have no interest in.
Right.
Uh, I'm back in the gym. I'm beating on the bag every day, uh, having a blast, and it's all because I shifted who I am, and it's
And
been
it happened
effortless.
in
On
an
the other,
instant.
it happened in an instant, and so a lot of people say, so what you're doing is you're eating carnivore, which is basically all meat. And I say, well, I sort of am, but I call it fleshitarian because I like eating flesh. I love flesh. I love my body. I love eating flesh. It's a lot funner to say it that way to me.
Sure.
But when I go on Facebook, I go in these carnivore groups, and so many people are struggling. They still crave sugar. They find themselves falling off the wagon. They use all this addictive personality language, and I've had absolutely no problems.
Right.
Not at all. Because I just changed and my body changed. My appetites changed. My hunger's changed. My activities changed easily,
And
instantly.
I lost a bunch on that. I don't know if you're familiar with the slow carb diet from Tim
Right.
Ferriss,
Yeah.
but
Tim
the
Ferriss.
beauty of,
Right.
yeah, but the beauty of that is you get a cheat day, but you don't cheat any day. You don't even have any
Yeah,
desire for
I have no desire for it.
it.
And it's sort of like the state of happy, loving husband. Some guys are, oh, yeah, they're willing to have a cheat day. I'm not interested. Yeah.
Right.
I live with this lovely lady,
Mhm.
and we have this dynamic dance. I couldn't ask for anything more.
For sure. And you're
Yeah.
like me, you like cooking. I see all your
Oh,
cooking. I've sent
absolutely,
you some
baby.
cooking videos as well.
That's
I don't know
right.
if
That's
you
right. That's right.
remember. Yeah, but we both love cooking. I try to keep it fleshitarian as well when I do mine.
Right.
That's have you loved cooking for a long time?
I've loved
Or,
cooking all my life. My mom wasn't into it, and so
mm-hmm.
it started out as a survival mechanism.
Of
And
course.
and of course, when I got older, when I was like 18 to 23, my first single years living on my own, it's like women like when you can cook.
Oh, they
Yeah,
do.
it's like yeah, so it's like all right, I like cooking, and and that contributes again to the richness of the experience.
That's right. Rather than invite them to Jack in the Box or whatnot.
You got it.
But just one more thing I wanted to touch on here. You said one time that what I like to do, and I'm quoting you, is to F with routines, right? Like some
Totally.
people say, and I noticed, or you said something like this, right? Like I'd like to screw around with routines. You don't like
Yes.
routines very much. And from what I understand, you're not really into meditation per se.
I used to. Don't need it
Right.
anymore, apparently.
If you
If
don't
I
need
ever,
it,
if I ever desire to do it, I'll do it again.
mhm,
I tell you what's cool though. From what I can tell, with the experiences like the promise and so on, there will be times where that's useful, and then there'll be times where you don't need it. And I
mhm,
think one of the biggest shifts I noticed with that was, I am the silence that hears the sound of your voice and mine. I am the stillness that notices all the movement. I don't have to still my mind. My mind's job is to do what the mind does. I'm the
exactly,
stillness that notices the mind.
exactly.
And with that, everything drops silent, and the noise comes up when the noise comes up.
And you don't need any meditation at all or
No,
anything like usual. And I've noticed that too in my life. Like there are periods when I don't do it at all, and then I'll notice like if I have an off week or 2 weeks, then I'll sit down and actually do it, and then get myself back to sort of a state of stasis, basically.
so out of the blue, you have a desire to meditate,
Precisely out of the
and
blue.
and you surrender to that desire,
Exactly.
and it works for you. On the other hand, somebody could go, to change my life, I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to struggle with meditating. Like, I'm going to struggle with my diet, and struggle with my wife. Boy, I wish I got a cheat meal. Yeah, and it's insane.
Mhm.
Versus, radio. Here's my desire. Can I allow myself to surrender to it
Exactly.
and give
I
up?
don't know if you've read Joel Goldsmith. I'm sure you have.
Many
And if
years ago, yes.
and
Yeah,
I talk about this a lot on my channel. He said don't try to apply truth, meaning that you don't try to
nice,
apply it. You have to
nice.
just sort of, like
You
you
live
said,
from it.
it comes out of the blue. You live on.
Yeah, yeah, nice, nicely
No,
put. I used to have a
you're,
nonprofit. You just brought a memory back. Back
mhm.
in the States, I formed a nonprofit called A Life Worth Living. And uh, gosh, somehow I got hooked up with the Joel Goldsmith people. And if you had a
Wow.
nonprofit, they would ship you hundreds of dollars worth of books to give to
Oh,
people. And and he was one of my favorites. You know, just like, all right, I'll pass these out, and so that word will bless people. Give them something different. So thanks for the memory.
if he was one of the greats. But like you said, there comes a point when we start to, like, Krishnamurti said, read the book of yourself.
Right.
And that's what
Yes.
we have to do once we get to a certain point. But it's beautiful. And so, what is the 2020's morning like when you wake up? So, you don't have a routine, or is there anything that you do
Uh,
regularly?
yeah, there is. I'm if I could say I've evolved since my early routine statements, I I, I do my best to not give life to ruts.
Sure.
So my routine pretty much has me awake about 5, make a bulletproof coffee, answer some
Oh, that's
emails,
good.
set up my day,
Mhm.
uh, sneak out to the hot tub, do a podcast episode, do some writing in my books, and then continue on with the day. You hit the gym usually about 10 or 11. So there's predictableness in there,
Mhm.
but it never becomes a rut because there's always a lot of discovery in each of those segments of my life.
That is beautiful. And just like a little bit more about your personal life. So, you were a police officer, correct? Or was it a prison guard?
I was actually both. I was a police
Both.
officer, and then I was a police officer for 3 departments at once. Right,
Wow.
so I was working part time in 3 departments, and I was too busy and too broke at the same time because it's hard to make a living doing that. And I finally got a full time job at the Department of Corrections, and
Okay. That's
you're
when the
probably
crazy
familiar
stuff
with that.
happens.
That's when the crazy stuff happened. Absolutely, and
That's
I wouldn't trade it for the world.
that's and did you go from that to being an entrepreneur? And what was your first business, if you don't mind us asking? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, that's fantastic. I While being an entrepreneur, I had a number of temp jobs over the years. My first attempt at really being a full-on entrepreneur, I had an Army Navy store. So
Oh wow.
I sold military surplus, firearms, stuff like that. Had a lot of fun. made a little money, made a little bit of money. Discovered
In
I never want to
Pennsylvania?
do it in Pennsylvania.
Right.
I decided I would never do a storefront and inventory again because that's just a rough way to make a living, in my opinion. And the weirdest thing that happened as a result of all that, one of my old martial arts students found me, and he
Wow.
said, will you teach?" And I said, "No." He came back a week later. "Will you teach?" I said, "No." He came back a week later. He goes, "Will you teach?" I said, "All right." So he got a small group of people together, and the small groups come and the small groups go.
Mhm.
And he was taking private lessons off of me for probably about 2, 3 years.
Now, why didn't you want to at first? Just curious.
Uh, I used to get frustrated. You know, nobody would practice the way I wanted them to, that kind of
Oh,
thing.
there
I'm
you
just so it's like, all right. But
go. So
Mike
anyway,
came
yeah.
in one. So Mike came in one night and he said, "I'm really not interested in doing the martial arts anymore with you, but I love talking to you. Can we get together every week and just talk?" And essentially, he became my first coaching client because he'd just
Wow.
show up and would walk for an hour, and he'd pay me money and go home. And it was like, yeah, I again out of the blue. All I want to do, I figured if I taught martial arts, it would change people's lives. Turns out that I can teach martial arts, but I got to admit, I like this direct stuff a lot better. It's a lot more fun for me.
Right. It is great rather than so good. And this was after your this martial arts thing was after your awakening experience, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been a martial artist since I was 12, so it's been going on for a while.
And then since then, it's been like sort of you got into coaching, and that's sort of been your bread and butter, right? Ever since.
I actually didn't want to do much coaching, but yeah, God, I love the way you're asking questions. This is good. So
Oh,
I figured I'd just make some products. I was studying Dan Kennedy,
mhm.
and I figured I'd just make some products and sell some products. But to make effective products, I FaceTime with people, facilitated that, and then I just fell in love with aha moments again. Just experiencing and exploring aha moments and being with people as they make shifts. So that's how we got into that.
So coaching is hard, isn't it? I've actually been doing coaching calls since I started my channel. It can be draining, can't it?
Not
If
for me.
you want, not for you at all. Like even when
Never.
people are never. That's good. But I mean, when people, I guess that you sort of see that they're still on whatever track they're on, no matter what you. Maybe that was the wrong term to use, draining. But I mean, it takes energy. It's,
For me, it gives me energy. I'm glad you're bringing this up. I've never been
Mhm.
asked about this. It actually gives me energy.
Well, that's good. Mhm. And what are some of the techniques or protocols that you use for coaching? Do you listen more to them, or do you interject at times? Because some people they want you to listen more and not say anything, and other people they want you to actually interject. And it depends on the type of person you're talking.
Cool.
Hmm.
What tends to happen in a coaching experience, the people tend to shine their flashlight of attention in a very predictable way. They'll ask questions that give them the answers that they're looking for. They'll scan for data that keeps them on the track that they're on. And one of the things that I notice I tend to do is to invite people to notice and explore where they haven't previously noticed and explored. So essentially, they're coming up with what their next steps are.
And you're just there being the space for that.
I'm the space, and I'm also the tour guide. Hey, look over here a little bit. Let's try something a tiny bit different. And then the dance begins.
It is a great dance. And have you had personal coaches, or everything was basically after the promise was basically self discovery?
I love working with mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that's really one of the things that fascinates me is the amount of people that are coaching and training that have not really been uh, coached and trained. I
Mhm.
really get that there's a supreme value in not only the wisdom that you can share with someone and the dance you can have with someone, but mentors working with mentors who work with mentors who work with mentors, not to duplicate what they're doing, but to have someone that invites you out of where you habitually go. So
Sure.
back to the routine question. This is really
Mhm.
brilliant. I appreciate the way you're approaching this. When I can invite someone out of their routines, they automatically stop falling into their ruts.
That's deep
It
because their
is.
ruts are in their routines,
Yeah. Yeah.
and sometimes they can't see out of it.
You got it. So we invite them to experience and stretch where they tend not to experience and stretch.
And that is a great thing. And you have I believe you have your new program that you've been announcing. What's the newest website?
That's a great question. Uh, uh,
I know there's Dream Driven Day, and I know
yep.
there's
So
is it identitybasedmanifesting.com, something like this?
yeah, if they go to
Mhm.
identitybasedmanifesting.com, this is really good, sort of buttoning it up. The uh, that's a cool program. That's pretty much at the cornerstone of where I see us going from here.
Mhm.
So pretty much anyone who wants to play with what I'm playing with, do what we're doing. It's a damn good little course. It's like you said, it's not fluff and filler. I had a guy years ago. He gave me a box of products that he bought from all these NLP gurus. So he sends me this massive box that was about half the size of a typical refrigerator. And I start. He says, just listen to these and see what you because I was getting started in producing my own products. And I went, Jim, this is crazy. This is just they're taking 10 hours to explain what we could do in an hour. And he goes, that's why I gave all these to you, because you're the guy that can take 10 hours and turn it into one. It's like, yeah, time compression. Got it.
Exactly.
So that would be my time compressed foundation right there. Identitybasedmanifesting.com.
Hopefully get it quit. Do in 1 year what many people take 5 years to do.
So, yeah, you know what? I got a kung fu master that I've worked with, and he said, what you did in 10 years, we could have helped you do in, yeah, one, maybe two.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
So
my gosh.
definitely go to that site and Dream Driven Day, Mr. 2020. I really appreciate your time. I think it was a great conversation.
Thank you,
And
my friend.
hopefully we look forward to talking to you again, hopefully many
Let's do
people
it,
will see it.
Javier.
Let's
Thank you
do it.
so much.
It was great to meet you.
Have a lovely day, my friend.
Have a lovely day. Thank you.